Welcome to the McGill Big 3. These 3 exercises are actually named for the creator of them, who is one of the world's leaders in back pain and spine research. Now, before we get into these 3 exercises, there's a few components that I want you to really understand. Number 1, in order to get the most from these exercises, being regular and consistent with your chiropractic adjustments is our number 1 priority. Why? Because in order to benefit from these exercises, you need really good intersegmental alignment and intersegmental stability. That comes from the regular adjustments, realigning those segments of the spine, correcting your subluxations, and making sure that your nervous system is functioning the way that it's supposed to. Then what we want to do is stack on top of that the exercises to support the adjustments, so that way over time you'll be able to hold your adjustments better and maximize the results that you're getting in the office. As we go through these exercises, I want you guys to really pay attention to the steps that I give you in the order that I give you, because it's going to be tempting just to jump ahead and do these exercises and think that the exercise itself is where the benefit comes from, but there's certain steps that you have to follow leading up to and throughout the exercises in order to maximize your progress. The first exercise that we're going to do is a warm-up for the Big 3. And what this exercise helps is to start to get spinal mobility without a lot of axial loading or compression in the spine. And so this is a great exercise to do first thing in the morning, right when you wake up. And it's very similar to the cat-cow if any of you have done yoga. So let me go through that, and I want you guys to follow kind of what I'm doing here. So you want to stack your shoulders right over your hands and your hips right over your knees, about shoulder width apart. Then what you want to do is you can start in the pelvis, and I want you to start by just tilting the pelvis forward, not moving anything else first. And I want you to think of your spine like a wave that you're trying to create. So what you're doing is you're moving the pelvis first, then the lumbar spine, then the thoracic spine, then the cervical spine. And then coming back, cervical spine, then thoracic spine, then lumbar spine, and then the pelvis. And then coming back is pelvis, lumbar spine, thoracic spine, cervical spine. And you want to try to go through that back and forth like a wave. The mistake that a lot of people do is they do something like this, where they're just arch this way, arch, back, arch. And that you're not going to get nearly the amount of benefit than if you're really trying to articulate those segments. And what's going to happen is you're going to find that it's easier, not only more that you do it, but the more regular you are with your adjustments, because we're actually unlocking those segments to allow for the spine to move in those positions. The first exercise that we're going to do is going to be the modified crunch. Now, with the modified crunch, what we want to limit is spinal flexion and extension. We want to work on creating stability and rigidity within the lumbar spine. And so in a second, I'm going to lay on my back. You're going to put a hand underneath your low back. And then as you contract, you're really going to focus on maintaining that optimum compression and stability throughout the movement. And the movement's a very, very small movement. So let's get to it. The first exercise of the McGill Big 3 is the modified crunch. So you're going to start by taking your one arm, it doesn't matter which one, and you're going to place your forearm right in the middle of your lumbar spine or your low back. Then you want to bend the opposite leg. From here, I want you to focus on a few things. 1, big breath. Number 2, compression, engaging your entire cylinder of your core. And then just a very light movement while you're maintaining that stability in that core. So you don't want to and breathe like that while everything is moving. And then also when you do the crunch, it is not a sit-up
or a big crunch. It's a modified crunch, which is a minor crunch. So let me show you. So breathe in, brace, lift lightly, and then breathe while you're bracing. See how there's very little movement here. You want to keep that real tight, and you want to hold this for 6 breaths and then relax. Take a couple breaths and then again, go up again. And you want to do that for 6 reps, okay? So the biggest mistake that people make, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, is this. They take a breath in, they lift too high, and then it's... See how I'm moving that whole time? What you want it to look like is breath, brace, lift lightly, see very, very little movement, should be soft breathing, keeping everything stable. So you want to do that 6 breaths for 6 rounds.
The first exercise was about creating stability in that anterior chain or in the sagittal direction. And then the second exercise is about creating stability on the lateral line or this coronal section. The second exercise is the side plank. With this one, what you want to do is you want to start in the down position though. And you're on your forearm, hands facing forward. You want to make sure that there's a good line between your elbow and your feet, and then your hips are a part of that line as well. From here, same thing as the first exercise. You take a deep breath in, tighten everything real tight, and then drive those hips up. Now, you want to keep that. So you should have one hand here on your core. And then as you're breathing in and out, you should not be seeing this flail or move at all. Drive those hips up, keep that core tight, and then breathe in that position. And when you do that, you're going to create a lot of stability in there, which is going to help you to maintain that stability throughout the day in all of the different movements that you're doing. So let's recap. First exercise, anterior chain. Second exercise, lateral body. Third exercise is going to be your posterior chain. So that way we can bring all 3 angles together and create compression and stability throughout the entire structure. The third exercise that we're going to do is the quadruped, or sometimes referred to as the bird dog. And so again, with this one, make sure you follow the steps, because I'm going to share with you some key things that people miss out on. So we're going to get into this position where we're on our hands and knees again, just like that first one, where your shoulders are right on top of your wrists and then knees are underneath your hips, about shoulder width apart. Now with this one, make sure you're not swaying at all. So what you're going to do is take a breath in and contract everything, brace everything tight, and then without moving, you want to pretend that you have a full glass of wine that you're balancing on your back, and any movement side to side or forward back or rotation like that is going to cause it to spill. So you want to remain perfectly still. So breath in, brace, and then without moving everything, you should feel it really tight across here and around the back. You're going to lift opposite arm and opposite leg, and you're going to go straight out. Most people, they get lazy, so they go here. What I want you to do is kick that heel back, straighten that knee, squeeze your butt, then make a fist, straighten your elbow, and punch forward as you drive back, and keep that real tight. And you're going to hold it there for 6 breaths, keeping everything stable, then back down, and then you're going to float right back up, keeping everything stable, driving everything, heels back, fist forward, keeping everything really tight through that midline and the core. Common mistakes that I see is where people do this and they arch. They go like that. That's not good. Or they'll shift to one side like that to balance, or they open up like that. So don't make any of those common mistakes. Otherwise, it can exacerbate the condition and it is going to limit your progress. Because I love you guys, I'm going to give you guys a bonus exercise that can help tie all this together and continue to move you along in that process of gaining spinal stability. And that exercise is going to be the hip thrust.
With the hip thrust, you're going to be laying on your back with your feet. You don't want them all the way against your butt, but you want to bring them in so they're fairly close, shoulder width apart. From here, same exact thing that we talked about before. Breathe in, brace, and then focus on engaging your glutes and using your glutes and your hips to drive those hips up. So you don't want to use the low back and arch to come up, because that's going to put a lot of stress and strain on the low back. So you want to keep that braced and tucked in, then use the glutes and keeping everything real stiff in the midsection, drive those glutes up in the air and get as high as you can without arching the low back. If you feel a strain in your low back, chances are you're not doing this correctly. You're focusing on using your low back to lift you up as opposed to your glutes. Then you're going to come back down, and another modification can be lift your heels slightly off of the ground so you're on the balls of the feet. But same thing, breath in, brace, and then use your glutes to drive your hips up. That really helps to focus on the glutes and the hamstrings and take stress off the low back. If you don't have that flexibility or range of motion, if this is all you can go while maintaining the glutes and a neutral spine, then just stop here. This is okay. If you by going further, you need to arch your back, it's not worth the risk. Do what you can and then slowly progress from there.
Lastly, let's talk about the minimum and the maximum expectations for doing these exercises. So minimum, they need to really be done daily or at least 5 times a week. Now, when you do them, even just one set each day can make a big difference. So if you can do one set of 6 reps of each one of 6 breaths, that will be a great start. But ideally, I want you to do 3 rounds of that on a daily basis, and you will absolutely see progress if you stick to that regimen. So in summary, if you want to get the most from these exercises, there's 3 things that you really need to be aware of. Number 1, maintaining the rhythm of your adjustments to correct those subluxations or those intersegmental biomechanical issues to allow for the nervous system to adapt the way that it's supposed to. Number 2, these exercises like the McGill Big 3 to work on gaining stability around the areas that we're adjusting. And then number 3, reducing a lot of these really bad habits of sitting in this slouch position or standing in this really lazy, abnormal posture that is going to limit the amount that you can progress. But if you work those 3 things together, I have no doubt that you will see amazing improvements as we go along with your care.